Forget the charming fairy tale you know. The legendary story of Queen Esther was absolutely never a romantic beauty pageant with a happily ever after ending. It was actually a terrifying forced abduction. A young, vulnerable girl was suddenly taken by the ancient world's most ruthless and unpredictable dictator, King Xerxes himself. Trapped inside the lavish walls of Susa, she survived not by her beauty, but through pure courage, strategic brilliance, and an unwavering faith in the unseen. King Xerxes ruled the massive Persian Empire, stretching entirely from India all the way to Ethiopia. He possessed absolute authority, commanding massive armies and demanding submission. To display his unimaginable wealth and plan a massive military invasion, Xerxes hosted a lavish, unprecedented gathering that lasted an exhausting 180 days. When the extensive military councils finally ended, a massive 7-day drinking banquet quickly began. Heavily intoxicated by wine, the prideful king made a deeply humiliating demand. He commanded Queen Vashti to parade her physical beauty before his drunken generals. Knowing the danger, she bravely refused to degrade herself before the unruly crowd. Furious and deeply embarrassed, Xerxes sought immediate advice from his political counselors. They warned that her rebellious defiance would definitely inspire women across the entire empire. Consequently, a strict royal decree was rapidly issued across every single province. Queen Vashti was permanently banished, officially stripped of her royal title and profound dignity. As time eventually passed, the lonely king sought a new queen. His advisors ruthlessly suggested gathering the most beautiful young virgins from every corner of Persia. Among the countless women forcefully taken was a Jewish orphan named Hadassah. To survive the dangerous Persian court, she adopted the foreign, deceptive name of Esther. Her older cousin Mordecai had lovingly raised her in the foreign city. He wisely instructed the young girl to keep her true cultural identity completely hidden. Inside the heavily guarded royal palace, Esther was placed under the strict supervision of Haggai. She immediately stood out, possessing extraordinary grace and quiet, authentic humility. Unlike other ambitious women who demanded luxurious jewels and expensive garments, Esther sought absolutely nothing extra. This unique simplicity quickly won her immense favor with everyone. After a grueling 12 months of preparation, Esther finally approached the powerful king. Xerxes was instantly captivated by her undeniable charm, placing the royal crown upon her. She officially became the new queen of the vast Persian Empire. Yet, absolutely no one suspected that God had strategically planted a Jewish girl inside the palace. Meanwhile, Mordecai regularly sat near the heavily guarded king's gate. One ordinary day, he accidentally overheard 2 disgruntled royal eunuchs whispering a deadly, treasonous assassination plot. These angry royal guards fully intended to murder King Xerxes. Mordecai quickly sent an urgent warning directly to Queen Esther, who immediately relayed the critical message. A thorough royal investigation swiftly exposed the terrifying, undeniable truth. The 2 guilty conspirators were immediately executed, brutally hanged on the wooden gallows for their crimes. Mordecai's heroic action was carefully recorded within the official royal chronicles. Strangely, the humble man received absolutely no immediate reward, public honor, or political recognition whatsoever. Sometime later, the unpredictable king suddenly promoted a man named Haman. He elevated this dangerous, arrogant official to the absolute highest rank within the entire empire. Haman was an Agagite, a descendant of Israel's ancient, bitter enemies. Royal officials were strictly commanded to kneel before him in total, unquestioning submission and reverence. However, Mordecai consistently refused to bow down or show such reverence. This daily defiance completely infuriated Haman, planting a deep, venomous seed of pure, destructive hatred. Discovering Mordecai was Jewish, Haman wanted something far worse than simple revenge. He maliciously plotted to completely annihilate every single Jewish man, woman, and innocent child. Haman superstitiously cast lots, known historically as Purim, to determine the exact date for this brutal genocide. He then approached the king with carefully crafted lies. He deceptively claimed a certain rebellious group refused to obey royal laws. He successfully convinced Xerxes that tolerating these mysterious people was incredibly dangerous for Persia. Trusting his advisor, the king carelessly handed over his royal signet ring. A terrifying, irreversible decree was quickly dispatched to all 127 provinces. When the horrific news finally reached the streets of Susa, absolute chaos erupted. Mordecai violently tore his clothes, putting on sackcloth and ashes in deep mourning. Hearing of his distress, Queen Esther sent a desperate, urgent messenger. Mordecai pleaded with her to immediately beg the dangerous king for her people's very survival. Esther was terrified, knowing the strict Persian law regarding the throne room. Anyone approaching the unpredictable king without a formal invitation faced immediate, certain, brutal death. Mordecai delivered a shockingly bold response. He warned that palace walls would never protect her, suggesting she was positioned as queen for precisely such a critical moment. Her gripping fear finally gave way to immense faith. She instructed all Jewish people to fast for 3 full days, resolving to approach the king regardless. She boldly declared that if she perished, she would perish. On the 3rd day, wearing royal robes, Esther courageously stepped into the highly restricted inner court. Seeing her standing there, Xerxes miraculously extended his golden scepter, sparing her life. Relieved, she gently touched the tip, securing the king's undivided and curious attention. The king warmly asked what her deep request might be, promising to grant her anything, even up to half of his entire massive Persian kingdom. Instead of immediately begging for her life, Queen Esther cleverly invited both King Xerxes and Haman to an exclusive, intimate banquet she had carefully prepared. Intrigued by this unusual and sudden invitation, the powerful king readily agreed. Both he and his highest official, Haman, attended Esther's private, lavish royal feast. Throughout the meal, Esther deliberately kept silent about her actual petition. She cautiously observed the king's unpredictable mood, waiting patiently for the absolute perfect moment. Before the banquet concluded, Esther extended another strategic invitation. She asked them to return the following day, promising to finally reveal her true, hidden request. The king's royal interest deepened significantly. Meanwhile, Haman left the palace feeling incredibly arrogant, completely unaware of the deadly trap quietly closing tightly around him. That very night, King Xerxes suffered from sudden, unexplainable insomnia. He lay awake, restless and troubled, unable to find comfort in his luxurious royal palace. Desperate for distraction, the sleepless king ordered his servants to bring the official book of Chronicles, demanding they read the detailed records of the empire. As the scribes read aloud, the king suddenly heard a long-forgotten entry. It detailed how Mordecai had bravely exposed a violent assassination plot against his life. Deeply moved by this massive act of loyalty, Xerxes questioned his advisors. He urgently asked what great honor or public recognition had been given to Mordecai. His royal attendants honestly replied that absolutely nothing had been done. The powerful king sat in thoughtful silence, shocked that such extreme loyalty went completely unrewarded. At that exact moment, the arrogant Haman entered the outer palace court. He fully intended to ask permission to execute Mordecai on newly built, towering wooden gallows. Before Haman could utter a single word, the king immediately summoned him inside. Xerxes eagerly asked how he should highly honor a truly favored, loyal man. Pumped up with blinding arrogance, Haman automatically assumed the king secretly meant him. He greedily responded with a highly detailed, extremely extravagant plan of public honor. He enthusiastically suggested dressing the man in the king's personal royal robes. He added that the honored man should ride the king's own majestic horse. Furthermore, Haman proposed that a very noble official should lead the horse through Susa. This official would publicly proclaim the king's great delight in this man. The king smiled brightly and ordered Haman to execute this exact plan immediately. Shockingly, he commanded Haman to do all this for Mordecai, the Jewish official. Haman's face instantly turned pale with immense dread and absolute horror. He was suddenly forced to publicly honor the very enemy he desperately wanted to murder. Thoroughly humiliated and deeply bitter, Haman paraded Mordecai through the busy city streets. Afterward, he returned home with a completely crushed and totally devastated spirit. He nervously told his wife and friends about this completely humiliating disaster. They darkly warned him that opposing a Jewish man would certainly lead to ruin. Later that day, Haman nervously attended Queen Esther's second private banquet. King Xerxes looked intently at his beautiful queen, demanding to finally hear her true request. Mustering immense courage and deep conviction, Esther finally spoke her heavy heart. She desperately begged the king to spare her own life and save her innocent people. The king's expression rapidly shifted to pure shock and intense confusion. Esther boldly explained that her entire race had been maliciously sold to be completely annihilated. She clarified that if they were merely being sold as ordinary slaves, she would have remained totally silent, not wanting to bother his supreme royal majesty. Furious beyond absolute measure, King Xerxes fiercely demanded to know the terrifying truth. He furiously yelled, asking who would dare to plan such a wicked, horrific slaughter. Without a single moment of hesitation, Esther pointed her trembling finger directly at Haman. She loudly declared that the vile adversary was this incredibly wicked, evil man. Overwhelmed by blinding rage, the king stormed out into the palace garden. Terrified for his life, Haman desperately threw himself upon the queen's couch, begging for absolute mercy. When Xerxes suddenly returned to the room, he saw Haman inappropriately clinging to Esther. He furiously accused his top official of attempting to sexually assault the royal queen. Royal guards immediately seized the terrified Haman, swiftly covering his pale face. He was quickly dragged away and brutally hanged on the exact gallows meant for Mordecai. Following the execution, the king generously gave Haman's massive estate to Queen Esther. He also formally transferred his powerful royal signet ring directly to Mordecai's steady hand. However, the terrible danger was still not completely over for the Jews. According to strict Persian tradition, a sealed royal decree could absolutely never be legally revoked. Risking her life once again, Esther tearfully approached the unpredictable king. She desperately pleaded for legal intervention to prevent the impending, horrific slaughter of her vulnerable people. The king officially permitted Mordecai to write a brand new royal decree. This new law granted the Jewish people the absolute legal right to defend themselves violently. Fast couriers swiftly carried this crucial, life-saving message across the 127 Persian provinces. Where there was once deep mourning, there was sudden light and gladness. On the officially appointed day of destruction, the Jewish people stood firmly united. With newfound courage and royal backing, they successfully defeated their brutal, aggressive enemies. Within the royal capital of Susa alone, they struck down hundreds of violent attackers. They also executed Haman's 10 wicked sons, thoroughly dismantling the dangerous political conspiracy. Across the vast Persian Empire, thousands of sworn enemies were permanently defeated. Remarkably, the Jews refused to take any material plunder, proving their fight was purely for survival. To remember their miraculous deliverance, the Jewish people established a joyful yearly celebration called Purim. It powerfully symbolized divine reversal, turning certain death into glorious, triumphant life. Mordecai was highly honored throughout the entire empire, clothed in royal blue and pure white. He became second only to King Xerxes, faithfully seeking peace for everyone. Although God's name is never explicitly mentioned in this ancient text, his fingerprints are visible everywhere. What was meant for destruction, God brilliantly used for ultimate salvation. The captivating story of Queen Esther profoundly reminds us of a timeless truth. Even when God appears completely silent in our lives, He is absolutely never absent. Even when insurmountable odds are heavily stacked against us, unseen hands are already at work. He is constantly moving behind the scenes of our darkest, most difficult moments. Perhaps you, too, are currently exactly where you need to be for such a time as this. Your unique placement in life is absolutely never a random, meaningless accident. You are not merely seen, you are purposefully chosen, strategically positioned, and divinely called. The exact same power that miraculously reversed a nation's fate remains actively present today. The supreme author of history still writes breathtaking stories of beautiful, unexpected redemption even now. And your own deeply personal story of incredible triumph could very well be next. If you found this historical deep dive truly fascinating and enjoyable, please seriously consider subscribing. Creating these detailed, highly researched videos genuinely takes an extensive amount of time. Your generous support really helps us continue uncovering these ancient, awe-inspiring historical narratives. Thank you so much for watching, and we look forward to sharing more amazing videos.